So, good morning, LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me today. As we all know, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. Um, so, this is something that I put together to highlight something that isn't often talked about, but is nonetheless very, very important. So, we're going to be talking about presenteeism today, and what presenteeism actually is, because it's not always obvious, and what are some of the dangers that can occur when presenteeism strikes. Now, I can see from my live stream that in actual fact, it looks as though my slide deck hasn't come up, so I'm just going to try and remedy that. So bear with me, please. See if I can sort this out. If not, I'm going to just talk through the slides. There we go. That's all right. No. Okay. I think what I might have to do is put the slides up later. We'll just try one more time. Okay, well, it hasn't worked, so apologies for that. What I'll do, if you'd like a copy of the slide deck, I will share it later, and hopefully then you'll be able to. Oh, no, it looks like it's appeared. Apologies. What a terrible start. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so what is presenteeism? Well, in a nutshell, it's the opposite of absenteeism, which in some respects could be even more concerning than absenteeism itself, because it's a situation where somebody is pushing themselves, perhaps more than they should, to actually go into an environment where, well, essentially they're not going to function that well because they're not firing on all cylinders. So basically, it's if you were looking for some pointers on who this person or this colleague, this friend might be, it's the employee who would regularly perform excessive amounts of overtime. So they're always working very, very hard in order to achieve their workload. They regularly take on more and more. And eventually, if presenteeism is not addressed, if it's ignored, it can snowball into things that are far more serious. It also covers people or employees who will regularly turn up for work when they're poorly. And as we know, not every illness is visible. A cough or a cold is quite obvious, isn't it? But things that are less obvious might be, somebody who has anxiety that they still come across as being confident. Could be somebody that's suffering silently with depression and they still smile. They turn up every day. They trick you into believing that everything's fine. They make jokes, they're the life and soul, and they do everything they can to kind of behave in a normal way and present as somebody who is, kind of firing on all cylinders, but silently they're suffering. They could even feel suicidal. They turn up for work every day, just like everybody else, and again, they appear fine. They present a side of themselves that tricks you into believing that everything's okay. But the reality is, it might not be. And there's no simple solution for this, and there's no simple answer for it either, because it's caused by lots of different things. So, what are the warning signs? As I say, not all of them are obvious. And I recently did something about burnout. In fact, we had, some of you will know, we had a a really fantastic event in conjunction with the Law Society, and Buckingham University were kind enough to kind of provide a wonderful space for us. And we had a client come over from Sweden, Mighty Health. We also had a fantastic uh, lady called Nina Tretzer, who is the founder of Coaching Lawyers. And we also had Martin Seville from Empathy Coaching. And we were focusing specifically on burnout. So these two things go hand in hand. Presenteeism can, in effect, if you like, be something that leads an employee down a really tricky path that could eventually, ultimately become burnout. And the recovery from that is not simple. It's not straightforward, which is why we're shining a light on presenteeism, because we all know that prevention is better than cure. And the earlier you spot the signs and the earlier you're able to intervene and offer the employee the support and the safe space that they need, the greater the likelihood of recovery and prevention. So, warning signs. So it could be, as I say, an employee who will turn up for work even when they're obviously sick. So they've got a cough or they've got a cold, or they might have a sprained ankle. It could be any number of ailments, but they will push themselves to come in. They continue to work while they're on holiday or maybe over at weekends. I can tell you from past experience in a previous life, I had a family member that would do just that. Would come home from work every day, walk through the kitchen, ask when dinner was, and then would go up to an office and work for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. They would get up early on a Saturday morning. They would work just relentlessly. It was painful to see, actually, constantly pushing themselves, but they've got targets to achieve, so why wouldn't you do that? So often they'll continue to work when they get home on a long day. Just touched on that. We'll give you a first-hand experience of what that looks and feels like. And, it leads to a situation where there's virtually no downtime. And then the downtime that there is very poor quality because you're fatigued, you need that time in order to actually rest and let your body heal and your mind heal. If you don't get good rest, then that's not going to happen. Your body battery is just going to discharge and it's never going to recover in a way that it should, which leads you down that dangerous path. So again, they might be responding to emails, they might be responding to text messages. We've got WhatsApp these days. We've all got these little gizmos that we use at work to keep us connected. But the really important thing is recognizing that line between home and work. And if you're struggling to strike that balance, then you really need to think, about how you're going to manage that. And also, if you see it in others, how you can best support them and lead them to the help that they will need. Okay, so what are the stats? Well, they're quite interesting, actually. Deloitte did a really good study in 2022 about absenteeism, but this was more recent, taking the stats from Google, from various sources. But interesting, presenteeism is experienced by around a third of people with at least one physical impairment. So that's a staggering 32%. I think that's quite high. And even this week, we've heard about sickness and absence from work across, the population at large, and how it's affecting businesses overall. And it's really very worrying. That tells me that things aren't being addressed, aren't being spotted. I think that figure is possibly a little bit misleading. I think that there are some people that are suffering with presenteeism, and it's far less obvious. It affects more than 1/4 of people with poor mental health, so that's 26%. And I think, this is just reinforcing why we're talking about this today. We know that it affects, probably more people with mental health issues that aren't getting the help that they need. They might not be able to access it in the way that they would like, and they're looking for a solution to address that. I think we all need to work together to, one, recognise it as a really serious issue, but two, we need to be educating people as to the best paths to getting the help that they need. Women are more likely to experience presenteeism than men. Again, I can talk from my own experience from a time in my life when I worked and lived in a very pressured environment, and I had two small children. I had a small holding. There weren't enough hours in the day, and my then partner in crime, as you like, used to work very long hours. Was on the road a lot, so I was under an increased amount of pressure in order to manage the home and provide the transport for the children, etc., etc. You're a mum or you're a dad before you're anything else. It often forced me into a situation where I would be going to work myself, very fatigued, very tired, not having had enough rest. And eventually, as I say, it can lead you down that path where you really start to suffer, and it has a knock-on effect. But the important thing is to get the help that you need when you recognise these signs in yourself or you recognise in someone else. So it's also more frequently experienced among mature workers, and I think again, my own interpretation of that might be, we're all aware when we reach a certain point in our lives that we might be in a really competitive industry and feel that maybe, a younger person might have the edge on us in employability terms. We might be conscious of that. I think the older we get, the more fatigued we might become. There's any number of things, and they're not unique. They affect different people in different ways and at different times. And interestingly, single people without children are also at greater risk of experiencing presenteeism. I have no real concrete answer for you on that. I don't know why that is, but certainly when I stumbled across this statistic, it's something that intrigued me and I'm going to find out more about. So, as I say, if you want more information, then please do reach out, because by the time you do, I might have an answer for that one. So motives for presenteeism. Let's move through to the next slide. Motives for presenteeism. Well, there are some obvious ones, and it won't come as a surprise. Money. I've again been in this situation. Simply cannot afford to take time off work because, especially now in this cost of living crisis that's affecting everybody. Unless you've got millions in the bank, alarmingly, I know when this really all kicked off and the energy market started to really pressurise, they were saying that, even if you're on a £40,000 salary, you're going to struggle, and it's kind of ringing true. Everything, the cost of everything has gone up. Your energy bills, the cost of basic food items. Everything is increasing, and there's no real sign of that letting up soon. So, this could be a red flag for the workplace, that motives for presenteeism, and certainly that one, money, is going to increase. So we can all be more and more aware to look out for the signs, because more and more people are going to be concerned about their living situations. And this, inherently, it does affect people's mental health. It could be fear of being judged by colleagues or management. I've done it. I felt guilty, and I thought I really must rock up. People will think very little of me if I don't. I've certainly spent 5 years working in a primary education setting, again, a very pressured environment where you have to turn up, because there are children relying on you being there, and I was a one-to-one learning support assistant for a young lady that had really complex needs. So I had to be there in order to um, support her. And I was worried about what people would think if I didn't rock up for work. So again, job security. People that are just, lots of people have leapfrogged around in the pandemic through no fault of their own. Uh, Again, it's been a really pressured environment. I myself I was furloughed and concerned about my future, which led me to leave a company that I'd worked for 3 years. I was blissfully happy there, had no ambition to leave, but I felt that I needed to secure my income. So, again, you find yourself in a situation where you're in your probationary period and you really want to do well. And especially in times of COVID, you get COVID during the probationary period, you can't really help it. But psychologically, it does harm you, it does weigh on your mind. The fear of being judged because you're taking time off, because you're sick. And as I touched on before, there are phrases like, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a team leader, I have to go to work because I'm irreplaceable. The truth is, when people have to take time off work because they're ill or because they're struggling or they're fatigued, we do cope. We make allowances and we distribute the workload and things get sorted. I know, as I say, when I was working in a school, sometimes teachers would be unwell, and not be able to come into work. So teaching assistants and other kind of members of staff step in and the job gets done. It might not get done in a way that you would like it to, because obviously these people are irreplaceable in that sense, and you can't help that, but you can manage. And at the end of the day, if you do it, if you do it in the way that it should be done, and you take the time that you need to recover, it's better for everybody because you then come back to work and you're well rested and firing on all cylinders again. So, what are the consequences um, if you ignore these signs, you know, and the presenteeism continues? Well, without a doubt, there's a loss of productivity. Um, People who work themselves to the point of exhaustion achieve less and less over time. And why is that? That's because, well, there's a number of factors, but one of them, without a doubt, is, you know, if you didn't plug in your mobile phone or your hybrid car, or I'm trying to think of another good example, your iPad. If you didn't plug them into charge overnight, what would happen? Well, they wouldn't work. And you're no different really to that mobile phone or that iPad. You have a body battery. And over time, the more fatigued you become, the less productive you become because, for one point alone, you have less energy. Um, so over time, you know, your health deteriorates, um, begin to make errors, and that can have quite serious consequences in that it impacts overall, over a business, over an organisation. Seen it at home when it's impacted on a family member and it's snowballed. It's a terrible situation, and it can be prevented and it can be better supported. And it's something that we must speak about really, in order to, again, be proficient in educating others, spotting the signs, and getting people the help and support that they need. Okay, so we've talked about the loss of productivity and the deterioration of health. Um, so, mental health and presenteeism. As I touched on before, in 2022, Deloitte carried out this mental health report, and without a doubt, the statistics will have changed, but I can't imagine they've changed that significantly, really. But it found that turnover, absenteeism, and presenteeism in the workplace, and remember, absenteeism and presenteeism, they're not the same thing. In fact, they're the opposites. So you've got absenteeism where somebody's staying home, and again, that could be for a physical ailment, it could be for a mental health ailment as well. We can talk about that another time. But it cost the UK economy in that year, 2021, between 53 and 56 billion pounds, which is a phenomenal amount. So imagine the scenario where if you could improve presenteeism, productivity would increase and you would save money, And I'm not saying that money is the be all and end all, because for me, people's mental health is far more important. But it is an eye-watering amount, and just think, how more productive we could be if people were better supported and less exhausted when they come to work. It could only be a benefit really to the economy at large, and also to the families and the colleagues and what have you of the people that are suffering with presenteeism. So when ignored, the causes of presenteeism can lead, as I said earlier, down a very dangerous path. We're talking about depression, anxiety, stress, which will eventually lead to burnout. And that is not a route that you want to kind of go down and arrive at, because I've spoken to people that have had real burnout. And we're not just talking about the little conversations, the little fleeting comments when someone says, "Oh, how are you?" You say, "Oh, I'm really burnt out." They're not the same thing. So we need to have a serious conversation about what burnout really is, what it actually means. Burnout can take at least, on average, 2 years to recover from. Think about that for a moment. 2 years. That's not quick. And some people, they just literally cannot function when they reach that point where they can't tie their own shoelaces. It's like somebody has put Mount Everest on their back and they have to go everywhere with that strapped to their back. Imagine that. It's not good, and you never want to get there. So it goes without saying that presenteeism and mental health, because they go hand in hand, you simply cannot ignore them. So contagion, it can affect us all, and I'm not just talking about the germs and the need to sanitize, and not sneeze over people. We all know somebody's come into the office before with a stinking cold and we've all gone, "Oh my God, I really don't want to catch that cold." I caught so many colds and bugs when I worked in the school. It was a relief to leave for that reason alone, really. But I obviously missed my children, my year group, and my colleagues. But yeah, it's a germ-ridden environment. So working from home as somebody with an underlying condition suits me very well. That's not to say I don't love to be with my colleagues from time to time, but honestly, if you've got a stinking cold, you should keep it to yourself. It doesn't benefit anybody, because ultimately more people will become unwell, which means more time off work in the long run. So if you overwork yourself to the point of exhaustion, eventually you will require actual time off, and that's no joke. As I've said, people that go on to experience burnout, they literally find themselves in a situation where they can't function, they can't do anything, because they are literally, their battery is on zero. And that does lead to an increase in workload across the business, which compensates. So, if you've got a cold and you need a couple of days off work and your colleague, your kind of work buddy says, "Oh, it's all right. I can do your outbound calls, or I can just monitor your emails and respond to anything that's urgent." You're all right doing that for a couple of days, but if it goes beyond a couple of days, the impact is far greater. And then when you think that every time that somebody is off, then other people have to work harder, and then they work harder, and you might start to get presenteeism creeping in with them. You know where I'm going with this. It's contagion, can be, a real problem. It's a bit like the domino effect. So addressing presenteeism and better supporting employees, colleagues, friends, family that might be suffering silently, it's definitely the best thing for everybody. Okay, so the big question is, I'd love to be lying around. I know that's a really cheesy joke, but I love this picture, and to me, it's impactful. Do you have a presenteeism policy? If you do, brilliant. If you don't, why not? Is that because you don't know much about presenteeism? Is it because you just haven't got around to it yet? Is it because you think it's something you'll never need? If you'd like any advice or guidance, more than happy to help you. Just reach out, drop me a message on here, or you can email me. My email address will be on the final slide. And I'm happily free up some time to talk about it with you, and give you some advice on how to go about it. It's not a complicated thing. It's really quite simple, but it needs to be clear, so that people kind of understand it. And it's got to be uncomplicated, otherwise it's not going to benefit anybody. So it needs to be clear. So what presenteeism is, and obviously we've talked about it broadly. And what are the rules? What are the consequences? So not just the consequences in respect to the fact that what will we do if we can't sort it out? I don't think there should really ever be an outcome where you can't sort it out and a consequence for that. I think you can sort it out, especially if you have a really good, clear policy in place, and you can get people the support and advice that they need. The consequence for me, when I use this word, it's the consequence of the wider reach of presenteeism. What is it going to do to that person? They could go down the dangerous path with the stress, the anxiety, the depression, the burnout. And therefore, what is the consequence to the team, or what's the consequence to the family, etc., etc. So when I use that consequence, I refer to it in those terms. It should also offer support, advice, and practical solutions, and there are so many. I know now, and I'm really pleased when I look around and researching companies for work, employee assistance programs, EAP, we call it in the business. It is really what it says in the tin. There's no one hard and fast thing. It can be one tool, which might be a software, or it can be a collection of things. But basically, what it means is it's all of the bits and pieces that we might not think about at first blush. So it's not necessarily your medical insurance, it's not necessarily your eye vouchers. More importantly, it's about the things that we don't always talk about, and we should. It's the mental health of our employees, of our group, of our family, our friends. How to spot signs in yourself, how to spot signs in others, how to get support and advice and practical solutions. So there are a lot of solutions out there. It's all about what is going to be the best fit for you, and what is going to be the best fit for the end user. Getting the help you need is the solution to the problem. Okay, so the other really important thing to mention is, especially when you look at why presenteeism happens, and we know that one of the most problematic things is paying bills, money, income. Your policy has got to be clear on sick leave and the pay. And you need to encourage employees to take the leave efficiently and without worry, because there's nothing worse than actually being poorly and not being able to work, and then finding out that, you know, a great big chunk of your salary is gone through no fault of your own. That doesn't help your state of mind. It doesn't help as a solution. So you need to find a work solution, and you know, the support can come in other ways. It could be, you know, making time up a little bit when you return, just to, you know, ease yourself back gently into a role, but without feeling that you're going to be financially penalised and not able to support yourself, because, as I say, that doesn't help recovery at all. My biggest advice, just from, you know, a kind of business professional perspective, I ran my own business years ago, and that was because I've been in a corporate environment, and as I alluded to, I had small children in a small holding, animals, you name it, I was doing it. And I needed to create an income really that better, it was a better fit for my family, because I realised in my moments of reflection that actually, you know, you have to be happy at work in order to be happy at home, and be happy at home to be happy at work. They go hand in hand. So I spent a little bit of time thinking about what I wanted to do, and actually I was offered a position to train in the management framework for a very well recognised chicken fast food outlet. I'm not going to name the name because I don't want LinkedIn to tell me off for giving names away, but I'm sure you would know who they are if you think about the secret recipe and the red and white logo. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, they have one of the best training frameworks in the world, and I was really impressed by it. But there was an image that really stood with me, and I've never forgotten it. And it was a picture of a rain cloud, and the rain cloud was kind of, if you like, referred to as the leader. And what it showed is that the rain cloud moves around, you know, and you can cast shadows, or if you get out of the way completely, you know, and the cloud gets smaller, then less rain falls and more sunshine appears. And I just thought that was a really impactful visual. So it's really, in a nutshell, you know, the people that are beneath you or around you, you are, if you like, leading with your shadow, or they're under your shadow. So if you shine as brightly as you can and you lead by example, and you put in the correct structures and the policies and all of the tools and things that people might need, and talk openly about it and support one another, then everybody benefits, because the cloud changes, you know, and the level of shadow created by the cloud changes, and you get more sunlight. And I love to say to people, you know, one of my mantras is just surround yourself with people that make you feel like sunlight, because there's really nothing better. And we all go through difficult chapters in life, but it's about changing that into a positive experience and working together to find a workable solution. So, addressing presenteeism and having a policy for it is a really good idea. It's something I would encourage all of you to at least consider. Like I say, you might already have a presenteeism policy, and you might not. But if you want some help with how to pull one together, or you want some examples of what one looks like, I'm happy to help you. So as I say, please do reach out, and I'll be glad to lend you a hand and offer you some of my time. So my own view, just to close, um, an employee that regularly works to the point of exhaustion, even when they are already unwell, is just as concerning as an employee who does less. Why? Because they are likely to be suffering from similar, if not the same things. And I don't really think I need to expand much on that. You know, people are quiet. Why are they quiet? Or could it be that the extrovert, um, the office practical joker, is actually presenting as somebody who's absolutely fine and dandy and okay? They might not be. So we have to have that 360 thinking in order to be aware to the dangers. What are the signs? How do we spot them? And what do we do about them? So finally, as I say, it's Mental Health Awareness Week, but for me, mental health matters all of the time. It's lovely that we shine a light on these important issues once a year, once a month, but it matters every day. And as I say, if you'd like to know more about presenteeism, or putting a presenteeism policy together, or it could be employee assistance in more general sense, then please feel free to book some time with me. I can send you a Calendly link if you drop me a DM, or you can email me and I will respond. And I would love to offer you some time, and I'd be happy to. So don't be a stranger. I will do another stream in a few weeks' time. It will be again relating to employee wellbeing and employee assistance. So probably focus on, we've obviously done presenteeism now, and we've done burnout, but we talk about them all the time. But it would be good to bring something else, a slightly different angle to share with you. So I will do my best. And that's it. Thanks for listening.